everybody, welcome to the League-Kempner House here in Galveston. This is an incredible 1893 Victorian mansion here on Broadway Street. It's very historically significant, and we've put it into a nonprofit so that we can restore it and take it back to its original grandeur. And I keep using that word restore, restoration, and it's a little bit of a misnomer. So today I want to talk about something a little bit controversial maybe and get y'all's comments and thoughts on this video. To talk about that, I'm standing in a very particular place in the house. For those of you that have been watching, you know that this house was built in 1893 by a very prominent architect, Nicholas Clayton, here in Galveston for the J.C. League family. It was then sold in about 1918 to the Kempner family. They were a much larger family and they needed to use the house a little bit differently and actually needed more square footage, if you can believe that, because this house is already massive, but it was only designed with 3 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms, one for the family and one for the servant. And the larger family in a more modern time, that just didn't work out. So kind of like we do today, they modified the house. Now, Eliza did that, fortunately, by adding on an addition on the back corner of the house. So she left a lot of the original interior intact. Now, one thing she did do, and that's why I'm standing here, is she closed in a couple of the porches. One was a very large porch on the front of the house, and that's where I'm standing. Let me show you some pictures of what that looked like before. You can see that this was an open porch. It was designed to catch the breezes that came in through the Gulf and feed them into the bedrooms. It was probably a place where they would sit out in the evenings and enjoy the breeze, but she needed square footage, so she closed it in. Later on, they also added a bathroom behind me, and I'll take you and show you that in a minute because that's kind of the focal point of the discussion today. But let me back up a little bit and talk about the difference between preservation, restoration, and rehabilitation in the context of a historic property. Now, everybody sees TV shows where they go in and gut and remodel houses and make them functional for families today. There's nothing wrong with that. That's been done through the ages, just like Eliza Kempner did in this house. But when you're dealing with a historic property, a truly historic property, there are a lot more guidelines, should I say. There's not a lot of rules because if you own the house, you can pretty much do whatever you want to inside. Here in East End Historic District, there is a historic easement, so the outside can't be changed, but you could gut this house and do anything you wanted to inside. Now, we're not doing that because we are looking at restoring this house. There I go using the word again. I should say rehabilitating this house. And let me tell you the difference. So the first level of historic preservation is that preservation. And that means not touching anything, just keeping the house or whatever structure it is standing as it exists in time in this moment today. And one example of that I'd like to give is the castle in Heidelberg, Germany. It was destroyed in a battle. They've not rebuilt anything, but they preserve it and keep it just as it existed after that battle. So when you go today, you see ruins. Now they don't want those to deteriorate anymore, but they're not doing anything to build the castle back. Okay, the sun just came out. I had to move. We're getting rain down here today, so that's a great thing. Anyway, back to preservation. So preservation is just freezing it in time today. Now, restoration would be picking a point in time and putting the house back to that point in time. So, for example, this house was built in 1893. This porch was not closed in. If we selected 1893 as the restoration point, we would rip this enclosure off and put the porch back the way it was when it was built, trying to get everything to be exactly as it was in 1893. Now that's not really practical and it's not expected. And a lot of this information you can find in the historic preservation briefs put out by the Department of the Interior. I've referenced those before. There's a lot of great information in that. Most commonly what's done is a rehabilitation. And there's a lot of subjectivity in that. That means taking a property, looking at the purpose it needs to serve today, and making modifications to make that happen. Being very sensitive to the historic nature of the house and the original construction, and trying to make as few changes as possible. But you still do make changes and modify things so that the property can be functional the way it needs to operate today. So that brings us around to this area. And I want to use this area as an example because I think it's easier to understand these principles in context when you have something to actually look at and think about. So let me get on the other side of the camera. Joe's not here right now to film me, so let me hop around the back side and show you what's going on in this area and talk you through that. So when I bought this house, this whole porch was closed in, and there were actually some cabinets along this back wall. And there was a door leading into what some people refer to as the Jack and Jill bathroom that worked as the bathroom for the primary suite and also for the guest bedroom, or Uncle Lee's bedroom as we call it. And you can see a hint of that blue in there. We'll get around on the other side and look closely at that in a minute. But my initial thought, because I was flipping this house and going to sell it, was that the primary bedroom needed an ensuite bathroom. No one's going to buy a multi-million-dollar house and not have a private bath. So this porch seemed to be the logical place. The blue bath already existed, so plumbing was accessible on this wall. I thought this porch might make a great bathroom suite. Then I had second thoughts, because even though I wasn't trying to do a historic rehabilitation, I was very sensitive to the originality of the house, and I decided that instead of having a huge ensuite bath, I would make it a very small, modest bath. You can see the footprint where we started the demolition, and use the rest of this porch kind of as a sitting area off the bath. So it could be a dressing room, it could function as part of the bath, but not have to rip any more out than we absolutely had to. And I think it's kind of fun. This was on the tour, I think, originally, but you can see the original porch floor down here, and it's got a pretty good slope from left to right as we're looking at it. And you can also see the original porch ceiling up there. Now, once I decided not to do that remodel for resale, I thought about this area again and changed my mind again, because that's one reason I like to go slow, because as you look at things, you change your mind, you see things differently, and we're not going to have people spending the night here, staying here. The primary bedroom doesn't really need its own bath. So I'm not sure what I'm going to do with this area now. But I've got plenty of time before we have to make those decisions. Right now I think it's fun just to have it open and people can come in and see the construction and see parts of the original porch. Now let's go around and look at the blue bathroom. Let's refresh about this room quickly before we talk about that. Originally it had two big windows here and here that opened out into that original porch, and they would have been glass sashes like down in the den that open up into the wall so that you can walk through. So they acted as doors. They're called walk-through windows. I took one out because there was no place in this room to put a bed against the wall, and they had covered the back of that beautiful divided light window with plywood painted black, so it was very unattractive. And I was going to clean this up and reuse it as a door to the new bath on the other side. When I did that, you could see the original construction. I think you've seen this before, but it was a window. There's the channel for the pocket. You can see the original shutter hinges there. So this opening is original, but let's get into the bathroom. The bathroom is fantastic. I love it. But it is very mid-century modern. This bathroom was probably added in the 50s sometime, and it does not go with this house at all. So my initial thought was to get this bathroom out, but keep it as a bathroom and redo it in something more period appropriate to the house. Something modern, but something complementary. I was going to remove the door because remember, we'd be putting a bathroom for the primary on the other side, and build a cabinet here for the sink, and actually use the little blue sink that we took out as kind of a drop-in sink on that cabinet to keep it original, the blue tub, but redo the tiles so it was a little less in your face blue, and again a little more complementary to the time period. So even though I'm not flipping this house and we are now doing a rehabilitation, there's still a question. Should this bathroom stay or should it go? And that's what I want to pose to you guys to comment on. So there are several ways to think about it, and the questions that we have to ask ourselves about this are the same questions that we have to ask about a lot of the things in the house that need work on. So to help you think about that should it stay or should it go decision, I have hopped over into the sunroom, which this was the addition that was added on by League-Kempner in the 1920 time frame. Now, people ask me all the time, that's not original to the house, are you going to tear it down? And the answer to that is an emphatic no. Let me tell you the reasoning behind that for me and how that fits with that preservation brief. So one factor that you can consider is cost. It's very appropriate to think about cost. No one wants somebody doing a rehab project to spend all their money on returning a building back to its original form if it means being derelict on the other things that are more critical. In our case, we have so many structural issues. We have the stained glass to contend with, the termites. We have just a lot of work to do on the electrical and the plumbing, so it doesn't make any sense that we would spend money to tear this down and try to put it back when there's so much other work to do. Now, another thing that you consider is how does it fit with the story of the house? Well, the story of this house is of two great families here in Galveston, the Leagues and the Kempners. They both played a prominent role in the development of this island, and they are deeply rooted in the history of Galveston. So this addition has a strong tie to the history of this house. It's also a question of the design and the significance of the structure. Well, this structure was designed by a very famous architect, Birdsall Briscoe, and it's in and of itself over 100 years old at this point. So it's got a lot of things that say, keep it, don't change it. So that's what we're doing. But this is an easier decision than that little blue bathroom because it is so large and expensive, it is so historically significant, and it's architecturally significant. So this is staying, but those are the same types of questions that we're going to ask about that little bitty bathroom. So before I turn this over to you guys to think about this issue and leave me some comments about what you would do if you were in charge of this house, let me talk about one more piece of information you need to make that decision, and that's what we're going to use the house for, because that's very important in a rehabilitation. We are going to primarily use this house as a house museum for people to come in and see the Victorian architecture, see how people lived, and just appreciate the house for what it is. Now, that's one primary purpose. The other primary purpose is to use the house for fundraising activities. It's very hard to maintain a house museum. They're notoriously not profitable, and we have to be able to bring in revenue. So while we won't have people sleeping up here, it's not going to be an Airbnb, we're not going to rent out rooms, there will be occasions for special events where we do have people up here using those rooms. One of those types of events could be weddings, in which case we would need a bride's room and a groom's room, and they will need access to restroom facilities. The other thing we might do is have parties downstairs, in which case we need restrooms on site. And we're limited downstairs, there's only the half bath, but we could have functioning bathrooms up here that guests could use during those kinds of events. So we will have a need for a certain number of restrooms on this floor. So that's something to take into consideration when you're deciding whether this bathroom should stay or should it go, or should it be gutted and a whole new bathroom put in that's more period appropriate to the house. So think about all those things and leave me some comments, and I know people are going to have radically different opinions about this. There are probably going to be strong opinions, and that's okay. Fortunately, there's no right or wrong way to do this. As I said in the beginning, some of these are very subjective decisions. That doesn't mean they're arbitrary decisions. They need careful thought. You need to really think through why you're making the decision and what's best. But the decision does have to be made, and we are getting close to having to make a decision on this bathroom. So let me know what you think and try to be nice about it. Remember, everybody's opinion counts. So speaking of fundraising, this is a work day for me. It is incredibly humid outside. Thank goodness we got some rain. It doesn't look like we got a huge amount of rain. There were not bare spots, but dry spots in the mulch where the trees blocked the rain from hitting the mulch. So I know it wasn't a driving, drenching rain, but it was something, and something is better than nothing. And we may get 3 to 4 inches of rain this afternoon. So that would be awesome. But while there's a break in the weather, I'm going to head outside and do a few more tasks. Our walkabout today comes courtesy of Kathleen Macca. She's the noted Galveston author that took us on that wonderful trip through the cemetery to look at some of the grave sites of the people associated with the League-Kempner House. After we did our filming, we went down to the harbor side of Galveston to have some lunch, and we were fortunate in that the Galveston Historical Foundation had just concluded its Tall Ship Challenge, and that's an annual event where these large, traditionally rigged sailing vessels come together and sail. It's magnificent. If you haven't seen it, check out the GHF website and be sure and come down to Galveston next time they have the event. But we were fortunate that there was one ship left in the harbor, so we got to have a close-up look at that. And there was also a cool car parked in front of the restaurant. But then we were driving back to the house, and we went a little bit different way and passed a building that I've always been curious about. And when I commented about it to Kathleen, she immediately started telling me the story of the tie of this building to the League-Kempner House. Today I have a very different walkabout for you. It's not a house, it's actually this building behind me, and it sits catty-cornered from the Galveston County Courthouse, which is where I took you before to show you that very interesting museum that they have. And I've always loved this building, but didn't know what it was originally, and today I found out. So I'm going to let Kathleen Macca tell you what it is. Here's Kathleen with the details.
Okay. This building where Jackson Square Apartments is now was originally the YWCA, built by Nellie League in tribute to her daughter who died the year before. Her daughter died in 22. The building was erected in 1923, and she built the building, founded the YWCA in Galveston, and fully furnished the building for the town.
Beautiful building.
The date's over the side door.
Nellie League suffered two great losses within a short period of time. In 1916, J.C. passed away from a ruptured appendix, and in November of 1922, Nellie's only daughter Daisy passed away. After J.C.'s death, Nellie had moved to the Northeast, and Daisy had joined her to be close to her two children who were going to school in the area. Daisy's son, Waters Davis, was attending Harvard and had become ill. Daisy went to be at his bedside to nurse him back to health, but unfortunately she became ill herself and passed away at the age of 45. As Kathleen told us, as a way to honor her daughter, Nellie League paid to construct the YWCA. Here at the side entrance, you can see carved into the stone at the top, it says 1923 YWCA. So Nellie must have commissioned this building immediately upon Daisy's death. Also carved into the stone is the motto, Love, Light, Life. This building has been converted into apartments, so I wasn't optimistic that much of the interior remained, but fortunately the front door was unlocked, so we were able to take a quick peek inside. While not wildly ornate, it does appear that some of the original features still exist, at least in the entry, such as the incredible light fixtures, the marble staircase, and the iron railing. The arched door on the front was also beautiful, and I have to say that this building is impeccably maintained. I didn't plan on this initially when I decided to put this walkabout at the end, but the more I think about it, the YWCA is the perfect example of a rehabilitation. Remember, a rehabilitation is defined as the act or process of making possible a compatible use for a property through repair, alterations, and additions, while preserving those portions or features which convey its historical, cultural, or architectural values. And that's exactly what happened here. The YWCA had closed at some point and the building was used for businesses and residences, but it had fallen into serious disrepair. I was lucky enough to find online the architectural firm who did this rehabilitation work. They are Powers and Brown out of Houston, and as I said before, I think they did just an incredible job. Let me paraphrase for you what they have on their website about this project. The goal of this project was to convert the dilapidated YWCA building constructed in 1921. I think that's wrong. I think it's 23. Into 26 modern-style condominiums. Challenges included numerous wall and roof leaks, updating mechanical systems, and the need to modernize the facility for requirements of an exterior stair to bring the building up to code and improving overall soundness of the building. The project was completed in partnership with the Texas Historical Commission and met their stringent requirements. A complete structural analysis of the building was conducted to make certain it would meet current building codes, standards, and hurricane requirements for the Galveston County. The interior of the building was demolished, steel was reinforced, and additional support was added to the concrete floors. An efficient mechanical system was added to each unit along with fire sprinkler systems. When designing the exterior fire stair and balcony, the team worked to retain the character of the existing historic building. These rehabilitations are important because buildings need to generate income to survive. That income is needed to do maintenance and repair, especially in this harsh Galveston climate. Without the rehabilitation, this building could have continued to decay until the point where it would be lost forever. Rehabilitation preserves the character and gives it a new life and purpose, so it can stand for hopefully another 100 years. So that circles us back around to our topic today, and that is this little blue bathroom. Should it stay or should it go? Give us your thoughts in the comments, and we'll circle back in the future when we've made a decision about what to do with this space. Thanks for watching. As always, we are the League-Kempner House in Galveston, Texas. You can check out our website, leaguekempnerhouse.org, or follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok for other more real-time updates on the goings-on at the house. We appreciate your support and hope to see you back next week as the journey to rehabilitate this house continues.